In this video, you're going to learn how you can create your own Helm charts, allowing you to deploy your Kubernetes application in a single command. We will go over how to generate a Helm chart, the files and folder structure, and get into Helm Templating, which will allow you to deploy your Kubernetes application with different values. This is very valuable for those of you trying to customize Helm charts for different environments like dev, staging, and production. As always, the code you see in this video is available in the description below, so you can take it and follow along with the video. After watching this video, you should have the skills necessary to use Helm to customize any Kubernetes application. So this is going to be really beneficial for those of you learning Helm for a job or just for your own personal projects. Okay, so the first step in creating any Helm chart is to create the actual folder structure and files for your basic Helm template. So you can do this with a command, or you can just create these folders and files manually. I'm going to run the command, and this is going to generate some general scaffolding for us. And then we're just going to delete what we don't need and then add in our custom application. Now in the description below, I have all the code that I'm going to be doing in here. So make sure to check out my GitHub if you want to use the same code. But let's go ahead and generate that scaffolding. So I'm going to run the command helm create, and then we give our Helm chart a name here. So I'll just call mine web app 1. And let's open this up in VS Code and have a look at what it generated for us. All right, so we have it up in VS Code, and this is the folder that it created, this web app 1. And let's have a look at it here. So if we pull it down, you can see that it created this charts folder, this templates folder, the Helm ignore file, a charts.yaml, and a values.yaml. So let's go over these really quickly. This charts.yaml file is going to contain all the information about our Helm chart. This one you don't have to worry too much about other than just giving it a name and incrementing the version number as you make changes in the future is basically all you're really going to need to do with this one. What we're more interested in is this templates folder and this values.yaml file. In the values.yaml file, you can see that it's giving a bunch of default values here, and basically this is going to be the default configuration for your Helm chart. Now there's a lot of stuff in here, and you don't need to use any of this, and you can customize this however you would like. So I'm actually just going to take this and delete everything, and we're just going to have a blank values.yaml file, and we're just going to create one from scratch, as that's the best way to learn Helm. Now, this next folder is this charts folder. Basically, if your chart has any dependencies on other charts, this is where you're going to throw them. It's not going to be something you get into until you're making more complicated Helm charts. This last folder here is the templates folder, and this is where you're going to be putting most of your stuff in. You can see that it generated quite a few different files here, and this is just an example Nginx app, it looks like. So we're not going to need any of these. We're actually going to delete these. But you can see this is sort of what a Helm application looks like. And there's a couple good examples on how to do the templating in here. So it's nice to have if you need a reference. So I'm going to go ahead and take all these files. And you don't need this test folders either. So I'm just going to delete all this. And then I'm going to go into my templates original folder. And again, this is on my GitHub if you need it. And I'm just going to take these 3 templates, copy them, and throw them in this templates folder. And just to show you guys exactly what this application does, you can see that it's got a deployment, a service, and a configuration map. And these specific manifests are from my Kubernetes training video. So if you want to look into the details at how I created this, you can check that out. But basically what this does is it creates a deployment, which is going to generate, looks like 5 pods here, and it just runs a simple web application. So that's the deployment that does the pods. This is the service that brings in the traffic on port 80, and then there's a config map. Now, if we wanted to deploy the application, we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we're going to take these manifest files and apply Helm templating to them so we can have different configurations for a dev environment and like a prod environment. But before we do that, let's just go ahead and deploy the application. All right, so we are back in the terminal here, And we want to be in a specific folder. So we want to be in the parent folder of our Helm chart. And then we're going to run our Helm install command. So I'm going to paste it in here. And you can see it's just Helm install. We give it a unique release name. And then we specify the location of our Helm chart, which is just the web app 1 folder. So go ahead and run it, and it should deploy your application. And if you do a cube control, get all, you can see that it released everything. You can see that there's been 5 pods, a load balancer has been created, a deployment, and a replica set. So if you want to test out the application and you're using Minikube, you can go Minikube tunnel, and this should tunnel traffic to your load balancer. Let's just open another browser here and just go curl localhost 80, and you can see that it's returning some traffic. Let's go ahead and open a browser as well. And I'll pull it over here. You can see it's our default web application here with the image and customized with config map, and then it gives us the container name that is serving it. So a nice little test application for us that we can actually customize. So let's go ahead and customize this application using Helm Templating. So let's have a look at our manifest files and just have a look at some of the redundancies in here. So you can see that for basically everything, we're just specifying a name, my web app, and then some labels. And basically, if I mistyped any of this stuff, it would be really annoying to find and troubleshoot. So instead, what we can do is put a value in here for the application name, and then just use Helm Templating to stream that value to these files. So let's go ahead and go here. So the first thing you want to specify for all your values is .values, and then you can give it a unique name. So I'll go app name. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it wherever I think is necessary. So name, I want it to be the same as the label. And then the selector wants to select it based on the app name. For our deployment, instead of my deployment, let's just make it the same as the app name. And just put everything here. For the image name, I'm going to keep that like that. And then for the config map, let's just leave it as is actually. Let's go into our values.yaml. And I'm just going to paste this in here. And VS Code is yelling at me because this isn't a valid syntax for our values file, but that's okay. What I actually want to do here is take this, and this is just going to be your basic YAML key value pairs. So let's give it a name. We'll go my Helm app. And now let's actually pull up the terminal again, and I'll just do it from here. And basically, I'm going to take that last command I did, which was the Helm install, and I'm going to say, instead of install, I'm going to go upgrade. And now that I actually have templating enabled, I need to specify this values.yaml file. So I'm going to go -- values, and I need to be aware of the directory that I'm in. So it's going to be webapp1/values. And there we go. So we can see that the release has been upgraded. I'm just going to pull up my other terminal here so you can see better. Clear the screen and do Helm ls. And you can see revision number 2. So Helm has been updated. And if we do cube control, get all, you can see our old pods are terminating and everything is coming up with that new name. So that's how easy it is to enable templating. Let's go ahead and template the rest of our application and you'll see just how easy it actually is. Alright, so back in VS Code, let's fill out this values file with some more parameters, and then we'll get into creating a separate values file for a production release and a development release. So let's open up our manifest files now and see what else we can template here. So the service looks good. The only thing I can think of is the namespace here. So let's just take this and just change it to namespace. And make sure to do that in all of our manifest files. And then in the values, just give it a namespace. And then we'll set it as default. And again, when we create YAML files for our dev and our production, we'll make sure to override this in those ones. So that's a good thing to template. The next thing I want to template is the configuration map. So let's take this and we're going to create a value called config_map.name. And then let's take this here. And the other thing I want to template for our application is this custom header, so we can modify it in the values YAML file. So I'll take this here, and instead of config_map.name, I'm going to call it config_map.data.custom_header. Now I'm just making up these value names. You could call them whatever you want, but a good practice is to make them match exactly what they are in your manifest files. So this is a config map, and then under the data, I have a custom header. So that's why I have it like this. Now let's go ahead and go into the values file and do the config map name and then the custom header. So we'll go into values and we'll go config map. And then underneath that, we'll give it a name. I'll call it Helm app config map v1.1. And then underneath there, we will go data. And then I forget the name of it. It was a custom header. So we'll throw custom header. This app was deployed with Helm. So I think that's mostly everything we want. Let's just do one more thing in the deployment. And another common thing that you would probably do is template the image name. So we'll take this, and I'm actually going to split this up into two separate values. So let's call it image, and then we want name, and then the tag. So the name is going to be this, DevOps Journey 1, my web app. And this is a container that's hosted on Docker Hub. So we'll keep this name here, but we're going to move this tag down here. And now let's go back into the deployment and steal these curly braces. And then say image.name. And then image.tag. And we need a colon between these. And since there's a string value in here, we need everything in quotations. So now it should say the image name pulled from values.yaml and then the tag that we have on there. And additionally, since this deployment is mapping the config map to it, we should use that config map name. So I'm just going to steal that from here and do it here. And now everything in our application should be consistent. So let's go ahead and deploy this. Then we'll create a separate deployment for development and one for production. So I'm just going to go into my README and I'm going to steal this upgrade command. Pull up a terminal and paste it in. And now my application should be upgraded. And if I do a Helm ls, you can see that the output isn't so good just because of my terminal size. But let's just make sure that the pods are running. And it looks like the old ones have terminated and the new ones are up. So that's looking good. So let's get into deploying a dev version and a prod version. But before we do that, I want to show one more thing that's actually pretty important. And that's how to output some configuration information for the user when they install your Helm app. So to do that, just underneath your template, just create a new file. and just call it notes.text. And then anything you put in here, it's going to output to the user. So I have in my README the actual commands that we want to run. And it's just two basic commands. Basically, it just maps the service name to a variable, and then it does some port forwarding, and then that's how you can access the application. So I'm going to take these two lines and throw it in the notes.text. And let's rerun the deployment command, which is the Helm upgrade command, and then run it again. And now you can see when you run the upgrade, it outputs these two commands to the terminal, letting you know how to access the application. So let's go ahead and run these. And now it's port forwarding. And when you pull it up in a web browser, you can see that this app was deployed with Helm, which is exactly what we put in our configuration map. So that notes.txt file is quite helpful, and you can actually template it as well, which we're going to be doing next when we do our prod and development deployment. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so coming back here, let's go to our values.yaml file. And I'm just going to copy and paste another one here. And I'm going to rename it to values-dev. And we can keep everything in here. That's fine. But basically, whatever we put in here is going to override the default. I actually don't want to override many of these things. So I'm going to take out what I don't want to override. So we'll keep the app name the same. And the image we want to be the same in all versions, so we'll just take that out. And then the config map name can be the same, but I want the data to be different, and for the namespace to be different as well. So for dev, I'll put it in the dev namespace. And then for our custom message, I'll say welcome to dev. And that should be enough for our proof of concept. So let's go ahead and copy this one, paste it, and just rename it to prod. And change the values here. Now additionally, we have this notes.txt file as well. So let's go here, and we want this to be dynamically filled out as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll actually type it here. As the two curly braces dot values dot namespace, and then let's do the same for the app name. And then up here as well. And now this will be dynamically filled out, and it should give out different information for dev and production. The value in this namespace is going to be dynamic now in that output message. Let's go back to our README. And the next thing we should do is create a namespace for dev and prod if you don't already have one. I think I already have these namespaces created. And I actually have this set to an alias, which a lot of people might not have. So I'll just change this really quickly in the notes. And then just copy and paste these in here. And it looks like I already have the namespaces created, so that's good. We should be able to deploy our applications. And then beneath this, I have the two Helm install commands, one for prod and one for dev. So I'm going to take one of these and then just go to the terminal, and I'll explain it there. So I'll paste it in here, and it looks exactly like our other commands. We specify the default values, but then we also specify an additional values file using this -f switch. And you can see that it's specifying values-dev, and I'm also specifying -n dev, and this is for the namespace for the Helm release. And this is just a good practice to make sure that your Helm release is in the same namespace as the Kubernetes resources that you're deploying. This will make a little more sense when we have a look at our release after we deploy this. So let's go ahead and run this command. And I'm getting an error here, so let's have a look. And I have the wrong value here. It's actually it's not my web app, it's web app 1. So I'll make sure to fix this in the README file. And it was incorrect in 2 places. There we go. It looks like it's fixed now. And you can see at the bottom here, it's outputting this, and it resolved the namespace properly. So this should be able to get us access. But before we do that, let's do another release and then just change all these values to prod. So namespace prod, use the prod YAML file, and then for the release name, let's change it to prod as well. And then if we do a Helm ls -- all - namespaces, and then just make that look nicer, you can see that we have our 3 releases. We have the original one that we worked on before, and now we have one for dev and one for prod. And if we do a cube control, get all, -n, and have a look at dev, we can see everything for dev in there. And then if we check prod, you can see all the prod resources there. Now let's go ahead and actually access our web application and make sure that we're getting the custom header for each of those environments. So scrolling up, let's have a look at dev first. So I'll just copy and paste these 2. And you can see I'm forwarding traffic. So let's pull up our browser and refresh it. And you can see that we're in dev. And if we do this again using the prod ones, you can see that it works for prod as well. So that's it for your tutorial on Helm Templating. If you enjoyed the video or have any questions, please leave me a comment below, and make sure to check out the description of this video, which contains links to other Helm and Kubernetes related videos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.